The 1940s were among the most turbulent and transformative decades in British history. A nation emerging from the shadow of the Second World War, battered yet unbroken, somehow found the will and ingenuity to continue producing motorcars of remarkable elegance and sophistication. While the world was rebuilding, Britain's finest coach builders and engineers were quietly crafting saloons of extraordinary refinement, vehicles that carried the weight of tradition alongside the promise of a new era. These were not mere machines. They were rolling statements of British pride, craftsmanship, and quiet resilience. Today on Britain Rewind, we're counting down 10 forgotten British luxury saloons from the 1940s, vehicles that deserve far more recognition than history has afforded them. Number 10. The Lagonda 2.6-litre Saloon. Launched in 1948 under the newly restructured Lagonda company, the 2.6-litre saloon arrived at a pivotal moment in British motoring. Lagonda had recently been acquired by David Brown, the very same industrialist who would soon breathe new life into Aston Martin, and this saloon represented the brand's determined post-war rebirth. At its heart sat a twin-cam 6-cylinder engine designed by the legendary W.O. Bentley himself, a detail that lent the car an almost mythological engineering pedigree. The bodywork was restrained yet elegant, wearing a formal saloon shape with carefully considered proportions. Inside, leather and polished woodwork created an atmosphere of composed luxury. Drivers who experienced the 2.6-litre spoke of its refined, unhurried character, a car that rewarded patience and appreciated the art of smooth, considered progress. Number 9. The Alvis TA14 Saloon. Introduced in 1946, the Alvis TA14 represented a thoughtful return to civilian production from a company that had spent the war years manufacturing aircraft engines and armored vehicles. Alvis understood its clientele, professional men, county families, and discerning drivers who valued quality over ostentation. The TA14 used a 1892cc 4-cylinder engine producing modest but dependable power, mated to a 4-speed gearbox that encouraged a measured, dignified driving pace. The bodywork, often supplied by coach builder Car Bodies of Coventry, was clean and upright in the finest pre-war tradition. Inside, the appointments were genuinely impressive: proper leather seating, polished walnut cappings, and careful attention to every fitting. The TA14 was never a car for showing off. It was a car for those who already knew their own worth. Number 8. The Daimler DE36 Straight-Eight. Few names in British motoring carried quite the institutional weight of Daimler, and the DE36 Straight-Eight of 1946 embodied that authority completely. Built to serve royalty, heads of state, and the uppermost reaches of British society, this vast saloon was powered by a smooth 5.4-litre Straight-Eight engine, a configuration that practically whispered of pre-war grandeur. The DE36 was not sold to the general public in any meaningful sense. It was commissioned, often with bespoke coachwork from firms such as Humber or Freestone and Webb, and delivered with an almost ceremonial gravity. Inside, there was division glass, occasional seating, and materials of the highest conceivable order. To ride in a DE36 was to understand that the British establishment, however battered by war, had no intention of abandoning its sense of dignified ceremony. Number 7. The Standard Vanguard Phase 1. The Standard Vanguard of 1948 was a genuinely ambitious motor car, one that its manufacturer, the Standard Motor Company of Coventry, intended to conquer not just British roads, but export markets worldwide. The Vanguard styling drew inspiration from contemporary American design, featuring a rounded, 3-box profile that looked thoroughly modern against the upright pre-war shapes still common on British streets. Its 2088cc 4-cylinder engine was robust and torquey, designed specifically to handle varied road conditions across different climates and territories. Interior appointments were above average for the price point, with a comfortable bench seat and a dashboard that felt purposeful rather than Spartan. The Vanguard was never a luxury car in the aristocratic sense, but for the aspirational professional middle class, it represented considerable achievement. Number 6. The Humber Pullman Mark II. The Humber Pullman Mark II, reintroduced following the end of hostilities in 1945, occupied a particularly interesting position in the British market, expensive enough to feel genuinely prestigious, yet practical enough for business and civic use. Rootes Group built the Pullman on a long wheelbase chassis, offering rear passengers a limousine-like sense of space. The 4.1-litre six-cylinder engine delivered smooth, unhurried performance entirely in keeping with the car's formal character. Coachwork was traditional and well-proportioned, finished to a standard that compared favorably with much of the European competition. Inside, division screens, folding occasional seats, and quality leather created an environment of genuine comfort. The Pullman served mayors, company directors, and civic dignitaries across Britain with quiet, understated authority throughout the late 1940s. As we move into our top 5, one entry ahead carried a legacy that would quietly shape the direction of British luxury motoring for decades to come. Number 5, the Armstrong Siddeley Hurricane Saloon. Armstrong Siddeley occupied a wonderfully distinctive corner of the British luxury market, a company equally at home building aircraft engines and motor cars of considerable refinement. The Hurricane Saloon, introduced in 1945 and named in deliberate tribute to the famous wartime aircraft, used a 1991cc six-cylinder engine paired with the company's celebrated pre-selector gearbox, a transmission system that allowed the driver to select the next gear in advance and engage it with a simple foot movement. This arrangement gave the Hurricane a uniquely smooth and effortless driving quality that contemporary owners found deeply impressive. The bodywork was upright and formal, finished with careful attention to chrome detailing and paintwork quality. Inside, leather and figured walnuts set a tone of composed, almost scholarly luxury, quintessentially Armstrong Siddeley in every considered detail. Number 4, the Rover P3 75. By 1948, Rover had firmly established itself as the preferred choice of the British professional classes, doctors, solicitors, senior engineers, and the P375 represented that positioning with considerable confidence. Powered by a 2103cc six-cylinder engine producing 75 brake horsepower, the P3 offered a genuinely satisfying balance of performance and refinement. The body, still wearing elements of the pre-war design language, nonetheless felt fresh and well-resolved. Rover's interior craftsmanship was beyond reproach: deep leather seats, a full wooden dashboard, and fittings that felt engineered to last a generation. The P3 steered with precision and rode with a composure that impressed even experienced drivers. It was a car that understood its own character completely, thoughtful, dignified, and deeply, reassuringly British in every meaningful sense. Number 3, the Bentley Mark 6 Standard Steel Saloon. The Bentley Mark 6 of 1946 deserves to be remembered as one of the most historically significant British motor cars of the entire post-war decade. It was the first Bentley to be offered with a factory-built standard steel body, a decision of profound commercial and industrial importance, signaling the gradual end of the bespoke coach-building era. Powered by a 4257cc six-cylinder engine, later enlarged to 4566cc, the Mark 6 delivered performance that was genuinely impressive by the standards of the time. Yet it was never merely fast. The interior, executed in the finest leather and carefully chosen walnut veneer, created an environment of almost incomparable serenity. The Mark 6 sold in considerable numbers for Bentley, helping to secure the company's future and establishing the template for the modern sporting luxury saloon. Number 2, the Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith. Introduced in 1946, the Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith occupied a position of near absolute prestige in the post-war British luxury market. Built exclusively as a rolling chassis, meaning that every example received bespoke coachwork from the country's finest independent coach builders, the Silver Wraith represented the last great flourishing of British custom coach building at the highest level. Its 4257cc six-cylinder engine, shared in modified form with the Bentley Mark 6, propelled the Silver Wraith with a quietness that became almost legendary. Coachwork from Humber, Park Ward, James Young, and H.J. Mulliner transformed each chassis into a unique work of automotive craftsmanship. Inside these cars, there was leather of the deepest quality, veneer of the finest grain, and a composure of atmosphere that no other manufacturer in the world could genuinely claim to match. Number 1, the Bristol 400. The Bristol 400, launched in 1947, stands apart from every other entry on this list, not merely because of its extraordinary quality, but because of the remarkable and unlikely story behind its creation. The Bristol Aeroplane Company, having spent the war years producing aircraft of legendary capability, turned its aerospace engineering culture directly toward the construction of motor cars. The result was staggering. The 400's body drew from pre-war BMW design, but Bristol's engineers refined and elevated every element with an aerospace precision that the original could not match. The 1971cc six-cylinder engine breathed through 3 Solex carburetors and delivered performance of a genuinely sporting character, while the interior combined aircraft-grade material quality with traditional British luxury appointments. The Bristol 400 did not merely enter the market, it quietly redefined what a small British luxury saloon could aspire to be. The 1940s were, by any measure, an extraordinary decade for British luxury motoring. Against a backdrop of rationing, reconstruction, and profound national uncertainty, Britain's motor industry produced vehicles of genuine beauty, engineering ambition, and lasting historical significance. These 10 saloons remind us that craftsmanship does not require comfortable circumstances, it requires conviction. Each of these cars, in its own distinct way, carried the values of a particular Britain forward into an uncertain future, a Britain that believed, above all else, in doing things properly, building things to last, and never, under any circumstances, compromising on quality. Which of these 10 forgotten British luxury saloons would you have chosen to drive, and which one surprised you most? Tell us in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey through Britain's forgotten luxury motoring heritage, please do give this video a like and subscribe to Britain Rewind for more classic British car content daily. There are plenty more remarkable stories waiting for you right here on the channel. We'll see you in the next one.